Welcome to the Campbell Museums. A mundane object like cameras have many stories that they can tell. In this video, I explore just a few of these stories. Think of this video as the abridged history behind cameras. This video is part of our What's in the Box series, where I pull a box from storage and see what we find inside. Check out the box number 3 playlist for more. Cameras have altered our reality. Today, much of what we know about the world around us comes from images and not first-hand encounter. Remote cameras on satellites, submarines, or drones allow us to see the surface of Mars, life deep underwater, and lava boiling inside a volcano, all from the comfort of our couch. Prior to 1840, the world was captured through the act of drawing, painting, or carving. These artworks were posed, staged, or painted from memory, limited by the artist's lived experience, imagination, and political lens. The invention of photography allowed us to isolate finite moments in time, not only with accuracy, but also with a speed that manual art could not match. It opened doors for new artistic expression, scientific discovery, fashion, and historical documentation. For 180 years, photography has evolved, shaping society with each advance. So join me as I explore a few milestones in photography, both technical and cultural. And I mean a few. This is in no way a comprehensive list of photographic inventions or photography, just some highlights. The topic is vast. The camera obscura is a natural phenomena, but was harnessed by man to reproduce the world around him. The earliest known written record of the camera obscura is found in Chinese text from the 4th century BCE. The camera obscura uses a box that filters an image through a small opening in one side and projects it onto a wall, albeit the image was upside down. Eventually, mirrors were used to project the image right side up, but these images were fleeting. Hundreds of years later, in 1822, the first permanent photographic image was invented by placing an engraving onto a metal plate coated in bitumen and exposing it to light. The image, called a sunprint, appeared. Though the image gradually faded away, it is considered the first photographic image. Finally, in 1839, we have the advent of photography as we understand it, with the daguerreotype. The daguerreotype was a photographic process of fixing images on a sheet of silver-plated copper, which was then polished and coated in iodine. The surface became sensitive to light and was put in a camera and exposed for a few minutes. Now, rather than gifting hair to a loved one or commissioning a painted portrait, you could give them a professional photo portrait, if you could afford it. A year later, in 1840, the first photographic images on paper were taken, known as the calotype. During the 1850s, multiple inventors found more efficient ways to process photos using the wet collodion process. This method was refined by multiple inventors using slightly different chemical processes over glass plates. One process, the tintype, proved more stable than the others. Wet plate negatives required the photographer to carry around a portable darkroom to develop images, so it wasn't very convenient, keeping photography in the realm of professionals and hobbyists. During this period, artistic photography was staged and used artistic imagery the way painting and sculpture had for centuries. Documentary photography saw its beginning as well. Widely regarded as the first photographs of inner-city slums, these photographs of Glasgow, taken between 1868 and 1871, document the poor and dispossessed in society. A huge step forward in photography was in 1871, when the gelatin dry plate negative was invented. Dry plate was more stable than wet plate, which allowed photographers to wait days before they developed their images. Gelatin dry plate also allowed cameras to be more portable. During this period, we see photography explore movement in a way that was impossible before its advent. For the first time, we could see movement that was too quick for the human eye. Photography was also used to share the grandeur of America, which helped make the case to create our national park system. In 1888, photography became accessible to the masses. Eastman of Kodak developed a celluloid nitrate-based film that could be rolled up, and then he preloaded a roll of 100 shots into a box camera. His slogan was, "You press the button, we do the rest." This innovative camera and film combination freed people from needing to develop the film themselves. After the roll was used, the consumer simply returned the entire camera to the company so the film could be developed, the prints made, and a new roll of film inserted into the camera. Now, almost anyone could afford to use the camera. Technical skill was no longer a barrier. The timing couldn't have been better, as the growing Victorian-era middle class had money and leisure time to hop on newly developed railway lines and travel far and wide, camera in hand. That said, many of the photographs that people created were portraits, staged, or experimental. This period was marked by an artistic movement called pictorialism, which created soft, fuzzy, ethereal effects, arguing that photography should elicit an emotional response from the viewer and not simply depict the world as it is. In 1907, the first color photographic plates became available, but it wasn't until the 1930s that color film became commercial. Photography continued to be used for social reform, as seen in these images documenting child labor in the United States. As we entered the 20th century, the modernism art movement was taking shape. Modernist photographers aimed to depict everyday symbols of modern industrial life, like machines, urbanization, and the city, a dramatic shift from pictorialism. The mid-1920s gave us a spring-wound motor to automatically advance film, as well as the introduction of 35mm film, which made photography even more portable. During this period, as the fashion magazine and beauty industries were growing like wildfire, photography was used as a tool of influence. In the art world, surrealism begins to experiment with photography. The 1930s gave us the commercial photoflash lamp. Kodachrome debuted a line of amateur color film, allowing amateur photographers to take color snapshots. Culturally, documentary photography continued to shape the cultural landscape, capturing moments of life as they happen, exposing the realities of our country. And photography cemented its role in the fashion industry. The 1940s brought the Polaroid instant camera. But more importantly, during World War II, photojournalists adopted the style of the modernist movement. The posed portraits of World War I soldiers gave way to graphic images of war and its aftermath. This modernist style of capturing significant moments reshaped the face of photography. The end of the 1960s began the digital camera revolution as multiple companies worked to develop digital imagery. But it was not until 1991 that the first commercially viable digital camera went to market. During this period, photography continued to capture moments in time that could not be experienced otherwise. The 1960s broke the long-held rule that only black and white film was for serious photography. During the 1970s and early 80s, point-and-shoot cameras took on the technical load of calculating shutter speed, aperture, and focus, leaving photographers free to concentrate on composition. It was also used as a tool to document the effect of man on our planet. At the turn of the 21st century, we see the camera phone. Today, all phones have robust digital cameras and video cameras that we carry right in our pocket, making us all amateur photographers. ready to document every moment of our life. Photography is so embedded in our daily lives that it is almost taken for granted as a tool for social change, scientific discovery, and creative expression. As we move into the 21st century, photography is reshaping human consciousness yet again through social media. Today's digital landscape presents us with a magnitude of imagery humans have never seen before. But as ubiquitous as photos are, editing software like Photoshop and Facetune force us to question the reality behind each photo. Mundane objects can contain big stories, and these cameras had a lot to say. What other stories might they tell?